Jennifer Van Alstine. Welcome to the Social Academic Podcast. I am so excited because my friend Meg Midlin is here. She is an artist, a scientist, and someone who is really good at social media. Not just good, but curious about it. And I thought she would be a great guest for the Social Academic. Meg, would you mind introducing yourself and a little bit about your research for people?
Yeah, so my name is Meg Minlin, like she said. I am a scientist and an artist. I research octopuses and this molecular mechanism that they do called A to I RNA editing. And I study specifically how ocean acidification impacts this mechanism, and what they're changing as a result. And I also do a lot of science communication on the internet, where I frequently combine my artistic background with my science and make it all pretty and nice. And yeah.
Actually, would you be open to sharing a little bit about your artistic background? Because I feel like you don't just work in one medium, you are a talented artist in a variety of areas. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was always art first. So my earliest memories are like literally, I think my earliest memory is like my first day of preschool where my parents were trying to like say bye to me, and I was just like, I don't need you. I have my notebook and I have my pens. Please leave me alone. Um so I like literally I've been doing art for as long as I can remember. I really thought like my whole life I was going to be a full-time artist, a full-time scientist, or a full-time like I had a lot of different ideas of what I wanted to do. For a while I wanted to do animation and then like graphic design. I played around with a lot of things. But eventually, once I hit high school, I had been kind of doing art as a career. I would do album artwork for bands. I did graphic design for we had a uniform in high school, so I made all the school's club t-shirts and things like that. Like I had been doing it as a career for like a couple years, and then that in combination with AP Studio Art, I was making like a painting every week. I just kind of hated it. I realized that I lost a lot of my passion for it. It no longer was a thing that I was doing for myself. It was now a thing that I was doing for others, and that kind of like sucked all the joy out of it. And so I decided that I didn't want to do art anymore. I instead of applying to art schools like I had planned, I decided I wanted to go into marine biology because I'd always loved the ocean. My AP Studio art portfolio was all ocean based. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to go do this because I don't know what else I would do, but this is like the next best thing. And I didn't do art for like a few years. It took me about 2 years to even pick up a sketchbook again and get going at it because I was just so tired of it. And then, yeah, I kind of found a way to like merge the two together because I think I was never going to be able to get rid of art. It's so like central to who I am as a person, to like how I deal with things, how I like communicate. Like, I'm just always going to be an art kid. And so when I got into science, it was just like, it was so easy for me to like bring my science or bring my art into science. Like there was a need, and I felt like it made my communication better, and it just made everything I talked about more engaging. And I don't know how I would do anything without it at this point.
Oof, I love that. Okay, so the science, like it does make it more engaging, but there's so many people who I feel like don't have your talent, like they don't have the artistic capability to create what they envision in their head, but they can work with someone like you, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Like you like working there's a lot of different initiatives I've seen that have tried to connect artists with scientists. Like I think
Mm.
University of Oregon does a whole like work with their art majors to create like little comic books for the science. Like it's so cool. Like there's definitely ways that you can connect with an artist and help translate your work in a more beautiful way. But I think even like it's pretty easy to teach yourself some like fundamentals of design. And Canva is so accessible and easy that I really feel like there's not an excuse to not like, do better in terms of presenting your work in a more like aesthetic manner. Like, you just need to know a few things. Like, how something looks nice on a page. There's like whole websites that will give you a color palette that looks well together. Like, I feel like there's just so many resources out there nowadays that like you can learn it yourself, and you don't need to like learn how to draw. You just need to kind of learn like what makes things look nice together, like dividing things up in thirds and like how to organize space, and like it's just very simple things that I feel like anybody can learn.
I love that. So if you're listening, you can build your capacity to really reach more people, but also like create your own creativity for expressing your science or your research. And right now, I wanted to mention that on Friday, I have like a website VIP day with a research lab. I designed their website. It's been up for a while. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I love about them is that they collaborate with this artist. They have this artist do their logo, do a flyer for like an upcoming symposium. And now they have like new art that represents the research that they're creating in new areas. And I think that collaboration doesn't just happen like one off. Sometimes it is a partnership that can last over years.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that's really beautiful.
No, it's so beautiful. And I'm thinking about it. There's like this new organization that just popped up, and I don't remember the name, but I remember Lindsay Illustration, who's also a scientific illustrator and was like a scientist at one point too. She helps run it, and literally its whole purpose is connecting scientists with artists to sort of just like bridge this communication gap. It's great. I wish I could remember the name of it.
I will look it up, and anyone who's listening later can see it in the description.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Because like also, yeah, you build a connection with an artist, and like they really get to know you and what you do, and that just helps you even further of like creating things that like really get to what you're trying to communicate with your work. Like artists just know it. They see it. Like I feel like that's what's made me a better science communicator, is having the art background, because you just have the brain for it. Like we've been training our brains to think this way for so long. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm so glad that I had you on to have this episode. This is perfect. Okay,
I'm so glad you asked me, just so that
really?
we spend time together.
Oh, I know. I miss hanging out with you. Okay, so one thing that I felt like really honored to be able to do this year was to attend your thesis defense. And I loved how much of your original art you put into that. What was that project like?
It was probably like one of the most frustrating projects I've ever done. Mainly because my master's thesis was built off of, it was a continuated project from two other graduate students. And I was kind of mainly just making it work and putting all, like, it was entirely all troubleshooting. So it was probably one of the most frustrating things that I've done, but like incredibly rewarding, which is why I love science so much. Cause like, you slam your head against the wall, but like eventually you get to, the cool point, the results. And then you're like, oh my God, wait, I actually like found some things and they're cool. And I think from the get-go, like I had already been experimenting with how to communicate RNA editing, because it's complicated. It's a molecular mechanism that people hear about DNA and RNA, and like all of their knowledge goes out the window. Like nobody remembers that from high school. And so like trying to do it in a way that like is engaging, because like it's the whole reason I got into molecular biology to begin with. Like I was not a really like hard science person. I didn't think I was capable of that, but it was so fascinating that I made myself learn it. And so to do the project, especially because I knew that like A, I had my science communication platform, and B, like we were gonna live stream the thesis defense, I really wanted to present what I had done in a way that multiple audiences could understand it. So I really like tried to go through the basics of everything to get everybody on the same page, but also like building a story behind what it was that I did. Like I only picked one result and I built a story behind it, which was my advisor's advice, because originally I was like, oh, I just have to present everything. And he was like, no, you don't. You don't have to present everything. And so that's where like the fun came, was like, oh, okay, I'm literally just telling a story. I love to do that already. And I had been thinking and like understanding the subject for so long that it was like, I'm naturally visualizing it in my head. So let me just put it on paper.
Like that creativity is already happening. So
Yeah.
even though it's extra work, you already know it's
No,
worth it, right? Like,
I'm already like know the subject. I know a lot about it. I think about things visually already. And so like in creating a presentation or like a PowerPoint, you know, you're like, man, I really wish I had this one graphic that would like really like sum it all up, because like nobody has graphics for what I do. Like my field is brand new. Like nobody has a graphic. And so I was like, well, I just have to make my own graphic. And so I drew them, but I think I could get it done even like without having, you know, artistic skill. Like I really think there's so many things like Canva. You could put some Canva figures together and be fine. I mean, there's like BioRender out there. Like it's kind of crazy what scientists have access to, like in 2025. But yeah, it was just all about creating a story, building a narrative, and then just doing it in a way that kept people's attention, because I'm talking about something that's typically really boring and goes over people's heads.
yeah, that's interesting, because I mean, people were really engaged. You know, when people say live stream, like sometimes the chat is friends and family who are listening and supportive, but they
Yeah.
don't always understand the content. And I really felt like all the people who were in the chat felt welcomed to participate, were
Yeah.
curious, and because you were so good at telling the story, they were able to follow what you were
Yeah.
talking about in a way that created opportunity for engagement. I was so happy to see what potential there was for this kind of live stream.
No, yeah, and I think that's like the thing that really like from my own like personal experience getting into this like tapped into it, is because like people hear about it and they're like, oh, that's cool, but like I don't know anything about this. And I'm like, if we can like approach it from a way where you keep that cool factor, where you're like, oh, this is cool, you keep people's attention, and then meet them where they are. You know, I'm gonna have to like explain some things, but I can do it in such a way that like it's entertaining and it's engaging. And I think really art plays a central role in that, because you have to like if I just had a white screen up there with text, people would be like, oh my god, like what is this lady doing? But I got pink graphics, I put some jokes in there, I, you know, made some cute little things. Like I did it in such a way that it was like people are going to pay attention a little bit more than they would otherwise, learn some new things, and then you're like, oh wait, I can understand this. I do, and I'm following it. I just needed to be reached in the right way with the right support and the right tools. And so that's why I love teaching RNA editing, because it's like you are capable of knowing this. You just have not been reached in the right way to really like pique your interest.
I feel like some people aren't open to doing the work, but you found that doing the work was like naturally happening for you, but
Yeah.
also that it was valuable and worth it.
Oh,
Mhm.
definitely. Because like it does take more time, but like the final product is so much more rewarding. Like to know that people understand what it is you're talking about. And like I just love that. It's like a challenge to me almost. And I think like I'm really happy, you know, the very first research lab I was ever in an undergraduate, our first task was to learn how to explain our research to our grandma. And like I am so thankful that like my undergraduate advisor did that, because it I just think it's so important. And we were working on, you know, complex stuff too. I was doing RNA editing research in undergrad, and I did learn how to explain it to my grandma. But you also have to get them, like whoever you're explaining it to have an open mind, to be like, no, like you can, like I know this seems huge and like, you know, out of your worldview, but like you can understand it. Like I really promise you, like it's not the most difficult thing ever.
What prompted you to think live stream? Was that something that was pre-planned, or did you have like this idea kind of last minute?
Well, I think it was already planned out because my advisor does the YouTube live stream. That's how I first came in connection with him. Is the original grad student who did this project was live streaming his thesis defense, and
Oh my goodness.
I was reaching out to people like trying to figure out graduate programs, and one of them, I think it was like Dr. Carrie Alberton, was like, actually, I know this man who his grad student is doing RNA editing, and I think his thesis defense is like tomorrow, and sent the link. And I literally like watched it, and then at the same time, like emailed Kurt and was like, hey, I want to be in your lab and I want to do this. So really, it wasn't my idea. I knew that he was going to do it. It's not like not everybody does it. They can choose not to or not. But I'm like, at this point, like, I have the platform. I want also, my parents and everything, people who couldn't come to Washington and watch. Like, I wanted them to see it too. And so I was just like, yeah, let's just put it up on YouTube. And I was so nervous beforehand. I honestly didn't like really broadcast it to like my social media. It was sort of like, if you want the link, reply. And then I like chose, I was like, I don't know, like I didn't want to send it to everybody, but it went much better than I anticipated. And now it's like still on YouTube, which is fantastic. It makes really great, just for me, networking to be like, here you go, here's my thesis defense.
I really appreciate that. Now you have like quite the social media audience, and it has brought some negative things, but also some amazing opportunities to tell me about like what social media is like for you, as someone who, I mean, like I would really, like you're an influencer. Like, what's that like?
Am I an influencer? I don't know.
Well, you influence conversation, even if you're not like thinking about it like monetarily.
Yeah.
I mean, like you really start conversations. You make people think in beautiful ways.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of was a thing that happened out of just boredom, which, to be fair, I think that's how all my social media presence has happened. Because, like, I've been doing things on the internet since I was a child. I just didn't have my name associated with it. Like, and so I think it was more so, like, I really loved science communication. I had gotten, my first whiff of it in my undergraduate, and I just adored it. And so it kind of came to like, I graduated from my undergraduate. I was really struggling to try to find, PhD programs, graduate programs, because I graduated in the middle of COVID. I was working a job I didn't like. And I was just like, I want to talk about the things that I want to talk about. And I just kind of did it. Which was a really big step for me, because even though I like now have this platform and this like, and people are always like, oh, you're so good at it, it was so out of my comfort level, because like any internet content I did was anonymous with no face. Like, it was just very like, I had my username, I made stuff, I never showed my face on the internet. And so the being in front of the camera, like doing the whole quote unquote influencer thing, so out of my comfort zone. It's still weird to this day. And then, yeah. And so then it's just like even more weird because your face is online, and I'm like, oh, golly gee, everybody knows I do this. Because in the beginning I was only TikTok, and I was just like, didn't tell anybody about it, was just having a grand little time in my little secret TikTok account. But yeah, I it's grown a lot, which is bonkers to me still. But it's fun nonetheless. Like, I really value connections I make with people and the different types of people that I meet. And I know, like, I met my best friend on the internet. I've met multiple best friends on the internet. So like, I love the internet. I love the community it brings. But now being like front and center and like putting myself out there in a way that's very like outside my comfort zone. Yeah. So the influencer thing, I'm like, oh God. I'm like,
sorry, that term gets people sometimes.
No, but I think I'm just like horribly awkward and just like kind of slightly embarrassed of it still. Like, like it took, maybe 2 years for the undergraduates I taught to be like, I found your Instagram. Like, why didn't you tell any of us that you did this? And I'm like, please don't talk to me about this. I'm like, this exists on the internet and the internet alone.
I love that. That's so interesting. So it sounds like, I mean, like, when did you, it sounds like you were always like kind of a faceless account. When did you start on social media?
I mean, I started my like science communication stuff maybe a little bit over 3 years ago.
Okay.
Because
Wow.
it was like the end of my undergraduate degree. Yeah, so it was about 3 years ago. In terms of like when did I start my, internet content era, I was making YouTube videos at like 10 years old.
Oh, just a
So,
kid. Amazing.
yeah. And it was all art. So it was all art. And like I built,
Yeah.
when Instagram first came out, I had an Instagram account and I built that up really quickly with my art on that platform. And so that was kind of like the first maybe social media. Because I don't know if YouTube and like DeviantArt really counted as social media at the time. But like,
DeviantArt, I would say that counted. There's like a good there it was interactive.
it was. And you felt so famous in the early days of the internet. I remember I had like 1,000 followers, and it felt like every single one of them were like talking and interacting with me, and I was like, wow. I was like, these are all my friends. And
Oh my God,
nowadays,
talk
like,
about an engaged community, right? Like that
no,
kind of reaches like unheard of these
it
days.
was so like it was literally, and I'm so sad because I was so embarrassed of my like previous, social or like content creation online that like I deleted all of it because I never wanted anybody to see the light of day. But like I remember the comment sections under my YouTube videos and like really like talking and chatting with people and like having these whole I just loved it. I loved it so much. I miss the early days of social media so badly because even the Instagram account I had, I built it up to like 100,000 followers just from like drawing other scene kids. But it was so like immersive and like you really got to know all the members of your community. And like to this day I have friends that followed me all the way back there and they like knew me at 13 years old drawing scene kids. Like it's just so wholesome and so nice. And so like, all the weirdness that I feel putting myself out there, like all the community that comes from it and the connections that come from it are 100% worth it. I'm like, I'll embarrass myself on the internet any day as long as I can keep this like community and connection alive. You know what I mean? Like I'll do whatever you want. I just want to talk to people.
And you're someone who I really admire when it comes to talking to people. That brings me to my next question, which is about with so much reach with the content you create that there are negative reactions. And sometimes those negative reactions are ones that you want to engage with. And I had Dr. Walter Greason on the show, and he talked about how engaging with negative reactions felt like something he was called to do. I'm curious about how you feel about it.
I mean, the negative reaction, it depends on the type of negative reaction, I think overall. Like, there's different types of negative reactions. There's ones that can be sort of like a learning opportunity, and there's ones that are just like mean hearted and people being like, oh, all that metal in your face. Like, really, are you the expert? And it's like, bro, this is 2025. Like, a nose piercing is not a crazy thing to have. But in terms of like, deciphering out of like, is this like something that's worth engaging with, I do engage with the negative stuff every once in a while because like it's just like I may not reach them, but somebody else who like comes across the video and maybe has a similar opinion or didn't know something, I'll reach them. Which like I think that's the best thing about all of it is like there is more opportunities to reach other people that are maybe like in the middle or like maybe just aren't very knowledgeable about whatever it is. I mean, especially with like I think the last video that popped off in London on the wrong side of the internet was just like a video I made in like solidarity with the other grad students right now. Like the audience was very specific. It was for early career scientists in the US who are going through it because I am also going through it. And like we gotta like let out our emotions a little bit sometimes. But that landed on the wrong side of the internet and it was just filled with misinformation about science in America. And so in those instances, I'm like, I'm not going to change your mind, but like maybe there's some information that other people don't know about how science works in the US. And so then that's like, I'm going to engage with negative, comments and things like that. I will say I'm a bit argumentative. So sometimes it's not always good for me because I love to win and I love to argue. But like in general, it can be a good time. But if you see me in a comment section, I'm sorry.
Oh,
So,
how about actually, I have a question about that
yeah.
because I feel like when I have received negative reactions in the past, just like one of my posts went viral. I got like a lot of negative reactions, and
Yeah.
it was about how academics and researchers, should be paid for speaking engagements if they are invited, especially by like a corporation or like
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
keynote, something big.
Yeah.
People did not like that, and so I got lots of negative reactions, but I also got so much support from my community, support from friends. People reached out.
Oh, yeah.
People were in the comments fighting for me. Like, do you find that your community is like that?
Oh, definitely. Like when my stuff ends up on the wrong side of the internet, which tends to be Instagram more than anything else, there will be my friends fighting in the comments, and standing up for me. And I think that's like really what I love most about it is like your little community comes together and like tackles the problem with you. Because at first it is like overwhelming and you're like, oh my God, like, I mean, really, my like thing about it is like, I don't care if anybody tries to, like come at my expertise or undermine my knowledge or like takes jabs at me. Like, really, when it's the most like heartbreaking is like, oh my God, like people believe this stuff. Like, this is really your opinion about like scientists in America, like that breaks my heart. But then, as many negative comments as there is, like you said, there's like you do reach the community you want to reach, and like there are people in there like sharing their stories, sharing their perspectives, sharing their struggles, and like to me that's all worth it because like I can get thousands of negative comments, but the like 100 that are like, oh my God, I'm going through the same thing, like thank you, like I'm so glad to hear that, I'm not glad to hear you're struggling, but that other people are in the same boat and that I'm not alone in this, and like ultimately like that's my goal. So like if I get more hate comments than the supportive comments, like the hate comments push me to more of the supportive community I want to reach at the end of the day. And so whatever, like I like it really is the community connection that is still there regardless of like haters in the comments.
There are so many grad students who feel like I'm not ready or I haven't done enough or I don't know how to do the things. Like, what advice do you have to share with grad students about social media?
I mean, it's hard because like I'm in the same boat as them, you know what I mean? Like I'm going through the same things that they are. I'm experiencing the same things that they are. And so it's hard for me to sometimes like give a position of advice when I feel like I'm struggling with the exact same things. I think overall though, like because like even like as a scientist graduate student, like the number one thing that you hear from others about like, oh, you're doing online science communication is, aren't you so worried about your career prospects? Like this is not like a thing that's going to be beneficial to you. This is only a thing that's going to hurt you. Like it's going to hurt your career chances. Like you're going to get judged by, like I just constantly would receive that feedback that was just like, this isn't a thing that you should be prioritizing. It doesn't put yourself forward. And so for that, I say, if you really care about, an online social media presence and connecting with the community, spreading knowledge, doing science communication, I think that's always going to be a priority over, some supposed downsides that you may face. Because like there probably is a chance that like my job projections are maybe a little bit affected by being an online science communicator. Like there's always that chance. It's what I've been told. But at the end of the day, I think that any job that I take, if they had a problem with that, it wouldn't be the right job for me. Like it just wouldn't. Like I at this point, like online science communication is so important to me and it's something that I enjoy so immensely that like if there's going to have negative effects, like I feel like it's just not the right place for me then, because it feels so crucial to who I am and my morals and my values to partake in this endeavor. And if like a company or a job prospect doesn't understand that, like maybe that's not the place. Maybe that's not the place where your skills and your knowledge will shine. And so for
Mm.
like graduate students that are uncertain about, partaking in the endeavor, like you kind of have to accept that there may be downsides that maybe you don't even aren't aware of. Like, I get a lot of old people trying to tell me that social media is going to destroy me. But like, how much does old people really know about the social media landscape and like job prospects in this day and age? Not much. And so if it's something you're passionate about, like, like you do you. Like, I think it's like great, to be conscious of what you put on the internet. I've definitely put some things out there that like they made me laugh, but were they something that I want a prospective job employment to see? Maybe not. But also at the same time, it gets buried rather quickly. And so I think if you have fun with it and it fits in your values and your morals of like the importance of science and education, that's like always going to reign supreme. And if you're scared of other people's reactions to it, one, do they have any idea of what they're talking about? Because I'm sorry, old people do not understand how social media interacts with jobs at this point. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't think the fear mongering over social media is the most relevant thing anymore. Like, as long as you're just doing science communication, man. Like, it's not like you're like cussing and yelling at strangers on the internet. Like, I think it's just kind of a silly thing that people do, and they're like, okay, whatever. But yeah, I'd say just go for it. Like, it's really like, what are you waiting for? Like, for me, I was waiting to do science communication until I felt like I was at a level of like expert to be like, oh, I have now earned the title to be a science communicator in the public. Like, I have enough knowledge and expertise. And I think that's not even, like, just start somewhere. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, you're at your ideal title that you want before you start this, because you got a lot of learning to do either way. Like, it's not just something that you're going to be good at, like, from the get-go. Like, you got a lot of learning to do, and you can do that learning now and build your skills now. So then when you actually come out of, your graduate program, you're in a much better, more confident place. You built those skills at the same time. So, yeah, that's what I'd say. If it's something you're really passionate about, just do it. Just do it. We need more science communicators, more scientists who are science communicators. 100%.
That makes me really happy. And earlier, when you were talking about what people have said to you, negative things about your job prospects when it comes to science communication, it's like I was kind of like shaking my head, because like I hear the exact opposite. First, I hear that people at high levels, especially in like the sciences,
Yeah.
They need communication skills, but like they are celebrated and promoted because
Yeah.
they have them. And I've heard that hiring managers really love when you bring more skills to the table, even if you don't use all of them
Yeah.
or like you can support the team just by your knowledge. And so it's really interesting to me that you've heard a lot of that advice. I don't even hear that from universities anymore. Like, a lot of universities
Yeah.
would like their scientists and their researchers to be more open about communicating the research impact that they have and how their students are already supporting their communities and really creating things that can be lasting. I mean, this is really interesting to me because at least in the conversations that I've been having with universities, like this is not necessarily the case. So if you have that opinion that your graduate students should not be practicing science communication, that they should not practice their writing and storytelling skills, or maybe even express an artistic interest for their incorporating into their research, like, I want you to reconsider that. I really want you to reconsider that, because there is space for both. Like, Meg
There is.
fit both in. Her platform helped, her get mentioned in the New York Times. Like, there are opportunities.
There's so many opportunities.
Yeah.
Like, everything that I have like gained recognition for is because of my online science communication. And it's been a great networking thing and everything. I think some people are just old and don't don't understand the value of science communication. I mean, there's, some other scientist professors who don't see the value in science communication. I think especially in the field that I'm in cephalopods, they can see, and animal research, they can see a lot of downsides and potential dangers to putting, that sort of content on the internet. But I think at the end of the day, like, more and more people are valuing science education. And I think it's just kind of a tired old belief, because no matter what, people are going to have social media. And I feel like if you see a potential, candidate social media and all they're doing is science education, I feel like that looks much more favorable than just like some personal page and it's like, okay, whatever, here's that button. I don't know, like I get both, and it's just like I do feel like I'm constantly though fighting the narrative that is like this is going to harm me and I shouldn't be doing this. And it's just kind of so frustrating because I see the value in it. I know other people see the value in it, but there's people outside the field that only see social media as a harm and not a good. And so it's really difficult to explain the environment that I'm in and why the social media thing can be good to people who only see social media as a harm.
So I guess it helped that your advisor is already on YouTube.
Oh yeah, Kurt's the best. That's part of the reason I chose him is because of how much he loves science communication already. But yeah, no, and I think the tides are turning. I think older professors are sort of understanding the value of science communication more and more. But yeah, no, it's definitely still a comment I get, especially when I was applying for grad schools. Like I had somebody tell me like, don't be surprised if you get rejected because of your science communication. And I was like, oh, okay. I think that narrative is going away, but it is still there. And I feel like you do still get it. And you kind of have to think about it. And not everybody's advice needs to be taken too seriously.
Yeah, fascinating. I mean, like I've like helped research labs bring on graduate assistantships specifically for science communication. So this is really, yeah, I needed to hear your story and your experience. Thank you for sharing it with me.
Well, I love hearing from you that like there's so much importance in this. So like that's great. Yeah.
Yes. There is importance in this, and there is things that we can do to change. Like if you're a professor who's listening to this and you're like, oh, okay, my grad students can be on social, they can do more, but I don't know how to support them. There's tons of resources to help you on the social academic, but there's also people like my last guest on the social academic, Lily Rosewater from Pitch Science. She is an Australian science communicator, and she actually offers done for you science communication. So if your lab is like, you're too busy to do it yourself, you need someone who can, do that content machine for you, there's ways you can get supported in that process. I want you to know there's options for you if you are like, I don't have capacity to do it myself.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. That sounds like a great little resource.
Meg, is there any way that you're offering ways folks can work with you on like science art or anything?
I should. I should do that. No, not currently. I mean, I've had a few commission pieces from labs of wanting things done. I'm really bad at advertising myself. So, I mean, I should do that more. I think, yeah, I should do it more. I guess if anybody sees this and needs somebody, now you know. But yeah, I'd love to do it more.
Amazing. Oh, I am so glad that you came on the Social Academic to chat with me today about your social media, your online presence, but also how your art and research are tied together. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I think every scientist should take an art class. I guess that's what I have to add. Take Art 101, learn some color palette and color theory and design, just for funsies. And I think it would really help not only better presenting your work in a more aesthetic and engaging manner, but also training and working a side of your brain that will also help you in your scientific endeavors, because learning how to be creative will always help in science. And there's no better way to learn how to be creative than to pick up a little paintbrush and start doing a little art. I guess that.
Meg Mindlin, how can people connect with you after this live stream?
Yeah, so I'm everywhere on socials as Invertibabe. Instagram just has a little dot underneath between in and Vertibabe because someone stole my username. But yeah. And if you need some science art, just slide in my DMs.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The Social Academic. I'm Jennifer Van Alstyne, and this is Meg Mindlin. I hope you have a good rest of your day.